My name is Steve Leifman. I'm a judge of the Miami-Dade County Court System. I'm currently serving as a special advisor on criminal justice and mental health for the Florida Supreme Court, which I've been doing now for about a year and a half. I'm a graduate of the American University undergrad, and I attended Florida State University College of Law. And I've been on the bench now, I guess, almost 14 years, which is hard to believe. It's gone by way too fast. My first insight into the mental health world was several years ago when I was an intern for a state legislator, and I was asked to go to the then state hospital in South Florida to check out a young man who should not have been there possibly. The senator had received a letter from the editor of the Miami Herald, and it was about a young man that they thought might have been autistic and didn't need to be in the psychiatric hospital. And so I went there, and I was 17 years old and very impressionable, and I will tell you, it left an indelible mark on my brain. I saw things that day that no one should see in a lifetime. Men in cages, lying in their own feces, orderlies walking by with hoses, squirting them off. People in the zoo, the animals in the zoo are treated much better. And ironically, I guess, my career has tracked the deinstitutionalization movement. And as it turned out, the young man I went to see was in fact autistic. He was chained to a bed, and they were injecting psychotropic medication into him, which had no bearing on his autism. And it was one of the cruelest things I ever saw. And he was about 150 pounds overweight as a result of what they were doing to him. We were able to get him out. We got him into an amazing adult living facility, and he thrived. He lost his weight, and it was one of those blissful stories that lived happily ever after, and it doesn't happen too often. And so fast forward, I was with the Public Defender's Office, and when I was in the PD's office, I started to notice that we were getting an inordinate amount of cases involving people with mental illnesses. And at the time, I was head of the county court division, and a lot of those cases were coming through us. And so I remember sending out this letter. I was a little naive, and I sent it to all these important people, and I asked them to come to a meeting to discuss the situation, and then I really thought there were some better ways that we could be handling these cases. And not only did no one come to my meeting, they never even responded that they wouldn't come to my meeting. And, just kind of shrugged it off, and then about 2 years later I was a judge. And the situation had gotten really bad, and I was now assigned to what's called the jail division. In the jail division are cases where people are charged with misdemeanors, low offenses, but they're still in jail. Most people are charged with misdemeanors, they're released, and they come back to court. So we have probably about 20 divisions, and all but two are, people come in, they're out. And so we have two divisions where people are still in custody. So there's three kinds of people in a jail division. There are those that are too poor to bond out. There are those that have other serious charges pending and are not allowed to bond out. And then there are those with mental illnesses that don't know how to get out. And I started noticing we had, 5 a day, then 10 a day, and then 20 a day, and it was really growing bad. And I then had this really horrible case that really woke me up to do something about it. One morning I was getting ready to go on the bench, and I was asked to talk to a couple whose son was in jail on some minor offense. I think it was like possession of a dairy cart, which is actually a county ordinance violation here. And so the PD and the state attorney asked me if I would speak to the young man's parents. So they came into my chambers, and are really lovely, lovely people, and they were incredibly distraught. And they started to ask me, to help their son, and they were basically begging me to get help for their son. They told me he was a brilliant man. He had gone to Harvard. He had a late onset of schizophrenia. and he was recycling through the criminal justice system, picking up all these quality of life offenses. He apparently had cashed in his life insurance, moved to Israel, was committing quality of life offenses there, and the Israelis deported him back to us, and now he was homeless in Miami. And as I started to get up to go back into the courtroom, the mom turned to me and said, "There's one more thing, and I need to tell you about my son." I'm like, "Sure." And she's like, "He's also the former head of psychiatry at Jackson Memorial Hospital." And it really took me back. And so I went into the courtroom and I called his case, and he was in fact brilliant. And he knew so much more about mental illness and the law than I did, because as judges at the time we got no training, zero. You kind of learned like police learn. You hope you have a decent mentor that teaches you the right way. And so really all we were taught was if someone acts strange in front of you, you order an evaluation. That's kind of the bottom line. So I started talking to him, and he was very articulate and very, very bright. And he knew everything. It was kind of funny. At first, I'm sitting there, I was thinking, maybe there's something wrong with his parents, because he was really sharp. Except he was homeless looking, and I probably hadn't bathed in months, and he was in jail. And so I said to him, considering your request for me to release you and you can come back for an evaluation, I said, but I just don't understand one question. One thing. And he said, what? I said, I don't understand why a Harvard graduate would be homeless and in jail if there wasn't some other issues that I really needed to look into. And then he got really upset, and he started to go into crisis, and he started grabbing his ears, and he started shaking, and he like violently shaking, and he kind of whips back, and he starts pointing to the back of the courtroom where his parents were standing, and he says, "Your Honor, before I go on any further," and he was very respectful, he was very appropriate. He said, "I'd like that couple removed." And I said, "Well, aren't those your parents?" He said, "Oh no, my real parents died in the Holocaust, and these are imposters sent from the CIA." I know his mom's crying. There's not a dry eye in the courtroom. And I immediately ordered all these evaluations. And, of course, he ended up sitting, 4 or 6 more weeks over this silly charge. And all the evaluations came back, and he was incompetent to stand trial. And I'm thinking, this is great. I'll fulfill the promise I made to his parents. I'll get him treated. I'll move on to my next case, and we'll all live happily ever after. And so I called the lawyers up. I asked them to stipulate to the evaluations, which they immediately do, and I began to order him into involuntary hospitalization. And all of a sudden I noticed that the assistant public defender has this grin on her face, which as a former assistant public defender, this is not a good sign. And she then utters those great words that none of us like to hear. She says, "Your Honor, in all due respect," which we know when a lawyer, says that to you, it has nothing to do with respect. And then she says to me, "You can't do that." I said, "What do you mean I can't put him in treatment?" She says, "Well, I have this Supreme Court case. It basically says county court judges have no legal authority to involuntarily hospitalize anybody. You have to release them on a conditional release." And so she handed me the case, and I read it and read it again, and I took a break and called my legal office and had them read it. And we all agreed it was a very horrible opinion, but it was clear. County judges have no legal authority. They have to, if someone with a misdemeanor gets found incompetent, they basically let him go. And this was going on for years. And I'll tell you, none of us become judges to be part of that kind of problem. And so I came back to my chambers. I was very upset. I felt really bad, and I had to release him. And it was a fascinating opinion, because at the end of the opinion it said, we really don't like this opinion either, and we're strongly urging the Florida legislature to fix it. And that case was like in the late 90s, and of course they still haven't touched it.